Tonight, a wealthy gentleman smiles at dinner, and the teeth you see belonged to dead soldiers. The year is sometime after 1815. Candles shine across silver and glass. Guests speak about politics, travel, and the recent wars. Their host has paid a considerable sum to restore a mouth damaged by age, sugar, infection, and years of painful treatment. His new teeth look remarkably natural. They are not carved from wood. They are not entirely porcelain. They are real human teeth, cleaned, trimmed, sorted, and fixed into a base carved from hippopotamus or walrus ivory. The dentist may describe them proudly as Waterloo Teeth. The name is a mark of quality. It tells the customer that the teeth came from young men killed in the prime of life, not from an old grave, a diseased pauper, or a criminal whose body had been buried and recovered. The Battle of Waterloo left thousands of dead across fields south of Brussels and tens of thousands more wounded. Before burial parties completed their work, soldiers, local scavengers, camp followers, and professional looters moved among the bodies. They took boots, they took coins, they took uniforms and weapons. And with pliers, knives, or other tools, they took teeth. The best front teeth traveled through merchants toward dental workshops. There, makers arranged the remains of several unknown men into one even smile for a customer rich enough to afford it. The customer might know exactly where the teeth came from. The origin was not necessarily hidden. Waterloo had become advertising. Why did wealthy Europeans prefer teeth taken from corpses? Who removed them from the battlefield, and how much were they worth? How could a dentist fit one person's teeth into the mouth of another without modern anesthesia, sterilization, or acrylic? And what happened when the elegant new smile began to rot? Tonight, we will follow a set of human teeth from battlefield mud to a fashionable dental surgery. We will examine the sugar, disease, and painful extractions that created demand, the trade in teeth from soldiers, prisoners, graveyards, and living donors, and the strange technology that turned ivory, gold, springs, and human remains into luxury dentures. We will also correct two famous myths. Waterloo teeth did not always come from Waterloo, and the most famous early American dentures were not made of wood. Before we begin, you can subscribe if you enjoy calm journeys through the unsettling details hidden inside ordinary objects. Then settle back, relax your jaw, and imagine a polished ivory case opening upon a perfect row of teeth whose first owners never agreed to sell them. To understand why anyone wanted a dead soldier's teeth, we first need to understand how easily living people lost their own. Dental disease is ancient, but diet and industrial change increased the problem in early modern Europe. Sugar had once been an expensive luxury used in small quantities by elites. Colonial production, enslaved labor, expanding trade, and refining made it increasingly available. More people consumed more sugar more often. Teeth paid the price. Bacteria in dental plaque metabolize sugars and produce acids that attack enamel. Without effective brushing, fluoride, preventive care, or early restorative treatment, small cavities expanded. Infection reached the pulp. Abscesses formed. Gums deteriorated. Pain became constant. People did clean their teeth. They used cloth, toothpicks, powders, brushes, salt, charcoal, chalk, herbs, and abrasive mixtures. Some methods removed debris, others damaged enamel. Advice varied, and clean appearance did not prevent decay beneath the surface. Professional dentistry was emerging, but not yet regulated in the modern sense. Barber surgeons, tooth drawers, instrument makers, jewelers, ivory turners, physicians, and self-declared dentists offered services. Skill ranged from exceptional to dangerous. A practitioner could build reputation through fashionable clients and persuasive advertising without completing anything resembling a modern dental degree. Pain brought customers. When a tooth became unbearable, extraction offered direct relief. Before reliable anesthesia, the procedure had to be quick. The patient sat in a chair, held by assistants if necessary. The operator used a dental key, pelican, forceps, punch, or other instrument to grip and lever the tooth. Speed was praised because every second mattered. So was strength. Neither guaranteed precision. Roots broke. Neighboring teeth fractured. Jawbone could be injured. Bleeding followed. Instruments passed between mouths without germ theory or modern sterilization. Infection already present could spread through tissue. The extraction that ended one pain might begin another. Traveling tooth drawers sometimes performed before crowds, turning dentistry into spectacle. Musicians distracted the patient. Assistants displayed strings of extracted teeth as proof of experience. A confident operator promised relief in moments. The wealthy could seek quieter care. They consulted practitioners with elegant rooms, custom instruments, and access to skilled craftsmen. They could pay for fillings, cleaning, artificial teeth, and repeated adjustments. Wealth improved choice, but it could not recreate natural enamel. Tooth loss altered more than appearance. It changed speech. It made chewing difficult. Food choices narrowed. The cheeks and lips lost support, changing the face. Public confidence suffered in a culture where controlled appearance signaled status. A politician, aristocrat, officer, merchant, or social host needed to speak and dine before others. Missing front teeth were especially visible. Artificial replacements, therefore, carried social as well as practical value. Early dentures used several materials. Animal ivory could be carved into a base shaped approximately to the gums. Hippopotamus ivory was valued because it offered large, dense pieces. Walrus and elephant ivory also appeared. Bone was cheaper, but less durable or prestigious. The ivory itself could be carved to resemble teeth. But carved ivory did not look exactly like enamel. It stained, absorbed odors, cracked, and changed in the wet environment of the mouth. Food collected around it. Poor fit caused rubbing and ulcers. Porcelain teeth offered another possibility. European experimenters developed mineral or porcelain dentures in the late 18th century. They resisted decay and staining better than natural tooth or ivory, but early versions could look unnaturally white, make clicking sounds, break, and fit poorly. Creating individual teeth with convincing color and attachment required further development. Human teeth looked human immediately. They already possessed translucence, shape, and surface texture difficult to imitate. A skilled maker could select teeth of similar size and shade, reshape their roots, and attach them to an ivory base. The finished row appeared more natural than carved substitutes. Demand exceeded respectable supply. Living people, sometimes sold teeth. A poor young person could receive payment for an extraction that supplied a wealthier mouth. The transaction converted bodily loss into immediate money. Advertisements or intermediaries connected donors to practitioners. Consent existed in a narrow economic sense, but poverty shaped it. The seller sacrificed a healthy tooth. The buyer purchased appearance. Class moved enamel from one mouth to another. Executed prisoners offered another source after death. So did unclaimed bodies, hospitals, anatomy rooms, and graves. Resurrection men who stole corpses for dissection could also supply teeth. A freshly buried body held value in several markets. Teeth resisted decay longer than soft tissue. They were small, portable, and difficult to identify. A sack could contain parts of many people with no names attached. War created supply on a different scale. Battles concentrated thousands of young bodies in one place. Many soldiers had strong front teeth despite disease elsewhere. Death was recent. Burial was hurried. Authorities struggled to protect remains across a wide field. To merchants, a battlefield looked like inventory. The trade existed before Waterloo. Teeth taken from other European battlefields entered dentures, but Waterloo's fame and immense human cost made its name commercially powerful. Afterward, Waterloo Teeth could describe genuine battlefield teeth even when no one proved that exact origin. The label became a brand. Young, fresh, European, heroic, and available in quantity. The violence that produced the teeth became a guarantee of quality. Waterloo was fought on the 18th of June, 1815. Napoleon Bonaparte had returned to power after exile on Elba, beginning the period remembered as the 100 Days. European powers mobilized to remove him again. South of Brussels, his army confronted forces commanded by the Duke of Wellington, while a Prussian army under Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher approached. Rain had soaked the ground. Men moved across mud, crops, roads, ridges, farm complexes, and fields churned by artillery. Infantry formed squares against cavalry. Cannon fire tore through ranks. Muskets produced smoke that obscured sight. Repeated attacks concentrated death around places such as Hougoumont, La Haye-Sainte, and the Central Ridge. By night, Napoleon's army was defeated. The battlefield was filled with dead and wounded from several nations. British, Dutch, Belgian, German, Prussian, and French soldiers lay across the same landscape. Some called for water or help. Others could not move. Horses suffered beside them. Precise casualty totals vary by definition and source, but tens of thousands were killed, wounded, or missing. The number of dead alone was in the thousands, not the 50,000 corpses sometimes imagined in dramatic retellings. That distinction matters. The field was terrible without exaggeration. Medical services were overwhelmed. Surgeons worked through amputations and wounds with limited supplies. Transport was difficult. Darkness concealed some victims. Rain and mud complicated every movement. Looters arrived before suffering ended. Battlefield stripping was not unusual. Clothing, boots, belts, weapons, money, jewelry, and equipment possessed value. Survivors might take from enemies. Local people might search after armies moved, and professional scavengers followed military campaigns. The line between salvage and robbery was thin. Some items belonged to the dead. Some were removed from men still alive. A good pair of boots could be worth more than a poor laborer earned in weeks. Uniform cloth could be reused. Metal could be sold. A gold ring or coin changed a family's circumstances. Teeth were less obvious, but equally marketable. An experienced scavenger knew which ones dentists wanted. Front teeth mattered most because they were visible in a denture. Incisors and canines could be removed more easily than large molars with multiple roots. A tooth with healthy enamel, good shape, and limited decay commanded more value. The scavenger worked quickly. Modern accounts often mention pliers, pincers, small hammers, chisels, or whatever suitable tools were available. The exact method varied. The jaw could be opened, a tooth gripped, rocked, levered, or broken free. There was no concern for pain when the owner was assumed dead. That word "assumed" is important. Across a battlefield at night, some unconscious or motionless men were alive. The stripping of wounded soldiers was a recognized horror. A tooth collector moving too quickly could become torturer as well as thief. The trade erased that uncertainty. By the time teeth reached London, no label said whether the first owner was dead, dying, French, British, young, old, willing, or robbed. They were sorted as commodities. Size, shape, color, condition, human identity disappeared into dental qualities. A merchant could transport large numbers in small space. Unlike boots or uniforms, teeth needed little storage. They crossed borders without obvious military significance. Customs officials might see ordinary merchandise or not see them at all. The route from battlefield to dental workshop is incompletely documented because scavenging trades avoid paperwork. Museum accounts identify local people, surviving soldiers, camp followers, professional body scavengers, and people who traveled with armies as likely participants. We should resist one neat chain in which a named tooth robber sells directly to a named dentist. The real market had intermediaries. A collector sold to a dealer cleaned or grouped, an ivory turner, jeweler, or dental practitioner bought. A fashionable dentist selected. A wealthy patient received. At each exchange, the battlefield moved farther away. Marketing sometimes brought it back. Waterloo was not an embarrassing source in the years after victory. In Britain, the battle carried patriotic prestige. Wellington became a national hero. Objects associated with the field entered collections and popular culture. Dentists could advertise Waterloo Teeth as fresh and superior. The name reassured customers that the teeth had not been dug from an old grave. It suggested they came from healthy young soldiers whose deaths were recent and whose bodies had lain only briefly in soil, if at all. The customer purchased both material and story. The story transformed grave robbery into military salvage. A tooth from an anonymous pauper might feel contaminating. A tooth from a fallen soldier could feel almost honorable when language concealed the robbery. No soldier had enlisted to become someone else's smile, but nationalism softened disgust. The teeth of enemy and ally may have been mixed. Enamel does not display uniform. A French soldier's incisor could appear in the mouth of a British gentleman celebrating Napoleon's defeat. A Prussian tooth could sit beside a Dutch one. The denture became an accidental European coalition. Several dead men could form one row. A maker needed visual consistency, not biological unity. Teeth were placed beside one another and compared. Those too dark, small, cracked, or curved were set aside. Selected teeth were cleaned and prepared. Cleaning practices varied and were not sterile by modern standards. Boiling is often mentioned in descriptions of battlefield teeth, along with scraping and treatment. Heat could reduce some contamination, but there was no validated protocol. Organic material had to be removed. Stains could be treated. Roots were cut or ground to fit. The maker drilled or shaped the tooth for attachment. Pins, rivets, or wires secured it to a base. Gold, silver, or other metals might be used according to design and cost. The base itself was carved from ivory to match a plaster or wax impression of the patient's mouth. Taking an accurate impression was difficult. Modern dental impression materials capture fine anatomy and set predictably. Earlier practitioners experimented with waxes and other substances. The patient bit or held material while the operator attempted to record gums and remaining teeth. Gums change after extraction. Bone resorbs. A denture fitted soon after teeth were removed could become loose as healing continued. Repeated adjustment was necessary. The carved ivory base had to rest upon sensitive tissue without creating intolerable pressure. Poorly distributed force caused sores. A rough edge cut. Food entered gaps. The appliance moved during speech and chewing. Upper dentures could sometimes rely partly upon shape and contact, but reliable suction was difficult. Full sets often used springs to press upper and lower pieces against the gums. Imagine two ivory plates connected at the sides by metal springs. The springs push outward constantly. The wearer must close against them. Open the mouth too far, and the dentures may shift. Relax, and pressure continues. Jaw muscles tire. The appliance clicks. The human teeth look convincing, while the machinery beneath them remains uncomfortable. Eating requires practice. Hard or sticky food threatens stability. Chewing force is limited. The wearer cuts food into small pieces and moves carefully. Speech changes until the tongue learns new boundaries. Saliva enters ivory. The base absorbs odor and color. Human teeth attached to it can still decay. They no longer receive blood, but enamel and dentine remain vulnerable to chemical and physical breakdown. Organic attachments trap food and bacteria. The denture must be removed and cleaned. Without proper care, it smells. Wealth purchased appearance, not modern hygiene. This is why a beautiful surviving set can mislead in a museum case. Dry, clean, and motionless, it appears like a technical achievement. Inside a warm mouth for hours, the object behaved differently. Ivory swelled and stained, metal corroded, springs pressed, gums ulcerated, human teeth darkened. The owner tolerated discomfort because the alternatives were visible: toothlessness, impaired chewing, and social embarrassment. Pain had already shaped the decision. Someone who endured years of toothache and extraction might accept a difficult appliance as improvement. Dentures were removed at night. The polished smile rested in water, cloth, a box, or beside the bed while the owner slept without it. Servants or family could see the transformation between public face and private face. The teeth belonged to the owner only while worn. In darkness, They became a small row of strangers again. The patient first encountered them in a dental surgery, designed to inspire confidence. The room might contain a substantial chair, cabinets of instruments, small bottles, polishing tools, casts, ivory pieces, and examples of completed work. Good lighting mattered. Before electric lamps, the practitioner relied upon windows, candles, oil, or gas, depending upon period and setting. An elegant interior separated a fashionable dentist from the market tooth drawer. So did language. The practitioner discussed artificial teeth, dental art, mechanical dentistry, preservation, and restoration. Advertisements promised natural appearance, ease, durability, and speech. Fees established exclusivity. Yet, the basic work remained intimate and physical. The dentist placed fingers in the patient's mouth. He examined swollen gums, broken roots, decayed stumps, and remaining teeth that might support an appliance. Breath carried infection. Instruments touched blood. Gloves were not standard. Germ theory had not yet transformed practice. Hand washing and instrument cleaning varied by practitioner. Some valued visible cleanliness. None understood microbial transmission as modern dentistry does. Before fitting a full denture, remaining diseased teeth often had to be removed. The patient knew what this meant. No local anesthetic would numb each site. Ether anesthesia entered surgery in the 1840s, chloroform followed, and dental pain control developed unevenly afterward. In the decades around Waterloo, extraction was normally endured conscious. Alcohol, opium, laudanum, pressure, speed, and courage offered imperfect help. The dentist prepared instruments. A dental key resembled a small metal key with a claw that gripped the tooth. The operator positioned it, used a bolster against the gum, and rotated. The mechanism could extract quickly, but also fracture tooth or jaw and damage neighbors. Forceps became better designed over time for different teeth. Skill mattered. The patient gripped the chair. One extraction, then another. If several teeth needed removal, the ordeal repeated. Blood filled the mouth. Cloths were changed. The dentist inspected roots to see whether the entire tooth had emerged. The sound could be remembered longer than the pain. Afterward, gums healed and changed shape. An immediate replacement offered appearance, but fit soon deteriorated. Waiting allowed tissue to settle, but required months without teeth. Wealth allowed temporary and later appliances. An impression captured the healed mouth. The maker transferred shape to a model and carved the ivory base with small tools. Mechanical dentistry borrowed skill from carving, jewelry, metalwork, and watchmaking. This is why jewelers and ivory turners entered the trade. The denture was a custom object assembled at the border of body and craft. Human teeth were laid out on a workbench. Perhaps the dentist bought them in bundles. Perhaps a specialist supplier sorted them. No provenance followed each one. Waterloo meant a category of sale rather than a certificate naming one battlefield. The maker compared them against the patient's complexion, age, remaining teeth, and social expectations. An unnaturally perfect row could look false. Slight variation looked alive. The central incisors needed appropriate width. Canines shaped the corners. Teeth had to meet the opposing denture closely enough for chewing without destabilizing the base. This required arrangement, not simply attachment. Modern prosthodontics studies bite, jaw relation, speech, facial support, and tissue health through precise methods. Early makers learned by observation and trial. A successful appliance created referrals. A failed one returned for adjustment or disappeared into a drawer. The maker shortened roots until crowns sat at the desired height. He drilled or grooved. Pins secured each tooth through the ivory. The back of the row looked more mechanical than the front. Polishing concealed transitions. When ready, the denture returned to the surgery. The patient placed it in the mouth for the first time. The sensation was enormous. The tongue encountered a base where open space had been. Saliva increased. Springs pressed. The lips received support. The mirror reflected a face closer to its earlier shape. Appearance could create immediate gratitude before discomfort emerged. The dentist asked the patient to speak. Certain sounds, exposed movement. The patient closed gently. High points struck first and needed adjustment. Ivory was filed. Springs were bent. The denture returned to the mouth. This cycle could continue across several visits. The customer paid not only for material, but for repeated attention. Only the wealthy could afford the finest version. Poor people lived with gaps, pain, and altered diet. Some purchased crude partial replacements or second-hand dentures. Others sold healthy teeth into the same market from which they could never afford to buy. The exchange reveals extreme inequality. A young laborer's natural tooth had more value inside an aristocrat's denture than inside the laborer's own mouth. Money converted bodily integrity into luxury. Battlefield harvesting removed even the narrow consent of a living seller. The soldier's body became raw material after death. At the time, dead soldiers were routinely stripped of reusable goods. Military authorities struggled to bury bodies rapidly, identify individuals, and protect graves. Concepts of war, dead deserving, organized, permanent, individual burial developed unevenly. Many Waterloo dead entered mass graves. Later, bones from European battlefields could be collected for industrial uses such as fertilizer, though the scale and connection of particular stories require caution. The 19th century treated human remains as more commercially available than modern sensibility allows. Anatomists relied upon executed criminals and later bodies of the unclaimed poor. Resurrection men robbed graves to supply medical schools. Relatives guarded fresh burials, used heavy stones, cages, or watch houses to prevent theft. Teeth were part of this contested economy of the corpse. They could be removed without transporting the whole body. A grave robber who did not risk delivering a corpse might still take teeth. A sexton or undertaker had opportunity. The small object slipped easily into legitimate trade. Customers preferred battlefield teeth, partly because they seemed cleaner in moral story. War had already opened the body. The dead were strangers. The buyer could imagine lawful spoils rather than churchyard theft. But the ethical difference is thin. Neither soldier nor buried civilian consented. The phrase Waterloo Teeth laundered origin through patriotism. It also obscured nationality. British advertisements could imply heroic young soldiers, but victory fields contain losers and allies together. A customer had no way to know whether the tooth came from a celebrated regiment or an enemy conscript. Human enamel resisted national branding. Once fixed into ivory, it belonged publicly to the buyer. Privately, origin could provoke unease. Did wearers think about the dead men? Some probably did. Others treated teeth as medical material, no more personal than hair used in wigs. Human hair also moved through trade, detached from identity. Bone, skin, and bodies entered medicine and craft in ways modern patients may find disturbing. Familiarity changes moral perception. If fashionable dentists openly advertised Waterloo Teeth, customers encountered the practice as accepted technology rather than secret horror. The name could even promise cleanliness. Fresh battlefield teeth sounded preferable to older corpse teeth associated with decay and disease. Yet cleaning could not remove every risk.
Human teeth are hard but porous in places. Attached tissue, blood, and contamination required removal. Boiling might damage or discolor material while reducing microbes.
Before knowledge of bacteria and viruses, no practitioner could validate sterility. Could transplanted teeth transmit disease? The broader 18th century practice of tooth transplantation, in which a donor's living tooth was placed directly into another person's socket, raised serious risk. Poor donors had teeth extracted and inserted quickly into wealthy recipients. Infection, failure, and possible transmission of diseases such as syphilis became concerns. A denture-mounted tooth did not integrate into tissue in the same way, reducing some roots, but contaminated material and instruments still carried hazard. The mouth itself was already full of bacteria. Poorly cleaned dentures worsened inflammation. Ulcers created entry points. The wearer blamed fit, food, age, or constitution. The dead tooth remained visually successful, even as the base harmed living gums. This contradiction defined early dentures. They restored the appearance of health through material taken from death. They could improve speech and chewing while creating sores. They demonstrated wealth while absorbing odor. They looked natural because they had once been alive. No carved substitute could match that unsettling authenticity. One famous smile helps explain how myths grow around early dentures. George Washington is often said to have worn wooden teeth. He did not. Washington suffered severe dental problems throughout adult life and had only one natural tooth remaining by the time he became president. His dentures used combinations of human teeth, animal teeth or ivory, metals, and springs. Surviving sets and records show complicated appliances, not carved wood. Why did the wooden story become so persistent? Ivory can stain and develop grain-like lines. A simple classroom tale is easier than a list of hippopotamus, ivory, brass, gold, lead, and human teeth. Wood also fits an image of colonial self-reliance. The myth makes the dentures quaint. The real materials make them troubling. Washington's records include a payment to enslaved people for teeth. The surviving account does not prove precisely how those teeth were used, whether they entered his dentures, or how much choice the sellers possessed. It does show that human teeth moved through a system of slavery and inequality in North America, as well as European battlefield trade. A wealthy man's mouth drew material from people denied freedom. The exact provenance of each tooth may be uncertain, but the economic structure is clear. Correcting the wood myth, therefore, does more than improve trivia. It reveals the human body inside the object. The same correction applies to Waterloo Teeth. Popular history sometimes imagines that all early dentures after 1815 were built entirely from soldiers' teeth. In reality, denture materials mixed. One appliance might contain human front teeth, carved ivory posterior teeth, metal pins, and an animal ivory base. Another might use porcelain. A partial denture could replace only several missing teeth and attach to natural ones. A full set involved upper and lower plates. Repair introduced new materials later. Museum catalogues identify construction through examination, but even they cannot always prove where a human tooth originated. The label likely Waterloo reflects type and period, not an individual chain of custody. This uncertainty should remain visible. It prevents a dramatic story from becoming false certainty. We can say battlefield teeth entered the market in large numbers. We can say the name became widely associated with human tooth dentures. We cannot say every surviving tooth beneath that label came from a named Waterloo soldier. The trade itself made certainty impossible by mixing and sorting. Provenance was deliberately erased at the workbench. The customer wanted matching color, not biography. Makers pursued alternatives because human supply, ethical discomfort, decay, and inconsistent size all created problems. Porcelain offered one route. Alexis du Château, a French apothecary dissatisfied with his own ivory denture, experimented with porcelain in the 18th century. He worked with the dentist Nicolas Dubois de Chaumont, who developed and promoted mineral paste dentures. The idea was attractive. Porcelain did not absorb mouth fluids like ivory. It resisted decay. It could be colored. It eliminated the need for corpse teeth. Early results had weaknesses. Firing changed dimensions, complicating fit. Full blocks could crack. Bright, uniform color looked artificial. The material clicked against opposing teeth. Attachment to bases required innovation. Still, porcelain had one enormous moral advantage. No first owner had died. Over the 19th century, makers improved individual porcelain teeth and methods of mounting them. Claudius Ashe, an English goldsmith and silversmith, became important in developing high-quality dental appliances. Around the 1820s, he produced porcelain teeth mounted on gold plates with refined springs and fittings. His metalworking background was ideal. Dentures required precision, small mechanisms, soldering, pins, shaping, and polish. Dentistry was becoming a specialized industry supported by manufacturers of teeth and equipment. Ashe's company expanded into a major international supplier. Standard artificial teeth could be produced in ranges of shape and shade. A dentist selected from a catalog rather than bargaining for anonymous human remains. This changed supply. It also changed the profession. Dental practitioners increasingly separated clinical work from manufacture. Specialist firms produced components. Training, professional societies, journals, schools, and legal regulation developed across the century. Dentistry moved gradually from mixed craft and showmanship toward recognized medical profession. Progress was uneven. Unqualified operators continued. Pain remained. Fees excluded many. But technical knowledge accumulated more systematically. Another material transformed access in the mid-19th century. Vulcanite. Vulcanized rubber could be molded into denture bases more cheaply than carved ivory or gold. It fitted tissue more closely, was easier to manufacture, and supported porcelain teeth. Patents and licensing produced controversy, especially in the United States, but the material helped bring dentures beyond the very wealthy. By the later 19th century, a set of false teeth no longer had to represent a fortune. Human teeth lost commercial advantage. Porcelain offered predictable supply and cleanliness. Vulcanite lowered base cost, improved impressions and techniques, improved fit. Anesthesia reduced extraction agony. The dead soldiers gradually left the smile. Their teeth remained in older appliances and museum collections. The term Waterloo Teeth survived after the original trade declined because language holds vivid history. A porcelain tooth has no battlefield story. A human incisor riveted into hippo ivory does. Museum visitors lean closer. The object looks small. One lower denture in the Science Museum Group collection, made in England between roughly 1800 and 1870, contains human front teeth fixed into a hippopotamus ivory base. Its width is only a few centimeters. Behind glass, scale makes the history intimate. This is not a mass of anonymous remains. It is a row small enough to fit in one hand. Each tooth once occupied one jaw. Roots were removed, but crowns retain individual shape. Slight differences reveal that the row was assembled. The ivory base has been carved to imitate anatomy while serving mechanical need. The object may not be proven Waterloo spoil. It belongs to the market Waterloo created. Museum catalogues classify it as denture, medical technology, and human remains. Those categories overlap uncomfortably. A tooth can be anatomical specimen and component at once. Modern ethical standards treat human remains with care. Display requires consideration of dignity, consent, cultural context, and educational value. The original owners cannot be identified or consulted. Their anonymity is not a reason to forget personhood. The denture's wearer is anonymous too. We know the rich were most able to purchase ivory and human tooth appliances, but a specific set may lack owner record. The buyer's jaw shape survives without a name. Two absent people meet inside one object. The donor or victim supplied tooth. The wearer supplied fit. The maker joined them. None can tell us how the appliance felt. Wear marks offer clues. Staining suggests use. Repairs suggest value. An unused showpiece differs from a denture worn through meals and conversation. Conservators examine without recreating use. The mouth is the missing environment. Warmth, moisture, pressure, bacteria, and motion transformed every material. An ivory base, dry in a case, may once have smelled, flexed, and rubbed living tissue. Human teeth, now pale, may have darkened. The museum cleans enough to preserve, not enough to erase evidence. Visitors supply imagination. Perhaps the original wearer was a merchant who lost teeth to sugar. Perhaps an officer whose own mouth suffered war injury. Perhaps an aristocratic woman seeking support for lips and speech. Gender did not protect teeth. Women and men both consumed sugar, endured pregnancy-related changes, illness, and limited care. Social pressure upon appearance could be severe for women, though male public careers also rewarded a complete smile. The term rich people is therefore accurate economically, but not socially uniform. Courtiers, professionals, merchants, clergy, landowners, officers, and political figures could become customers. Their ability to pay connected them. They could transfer the consequences of tooth loss onto another person's remains. Poor people had fewer options. A laborer missing front teeth adapted speech and diet. A servant risked employment if appearance or ability to work suffered. Cheap dental appliances existed, but fit and quality could be terrible. Second-hand dentures circulated, sometimes altered for another mouth. The phrase second-hand teeth was literal. A set could have two wearers and several original tooth owners. Human material moved repeatedly. Advertisements for used dentures reveal that even luxury could be recycled. Gold or ivory retained value. A dealer purchased a set after death, removed usable components, and rebuilt. The dead wearer joined the dead donors. The appliance accumulated biographies while losing names. This economy challenges the modern assumption that medical devices belong permanently to one body. Before mass manufacture, custom objects were too valuable to discard casually. Reuse seemed practical. Hygiene was secondary. The market treated teeth like gemstones that could be reset, shape them, polish them, mount them again. Only the origin made the practice feel different. Enamel is not a gemstone, it is a surviving part of a person. That personhood was difficult to protect after battle. Modern military systems attempt to identify remains, record graves, notify families, and recover personal effects. International laws require protection of wounded and dead from pillage and mistreatment. Practice still fails in war, but the principle is clear. In 1815, systems of recovery and commemoration were different. Officers and prominent individuals had better chances of named burial or return. Ordinary soldiers often entered collective graves near where they fell. Identification tags were not standard. Families might receive uncertain news. The battlefield belonged temporarily to whoever controlled it. Burial parties worked under pressure from heat, decay, disease, fear, and scale. Local labor might be ordered or paid. Bodies were moved into pits. Clothing and equipment could already be missing. The dead soldier's family was far away. No relative watched the grave. No record followed a tooth. This distance created commercial opportunity. Scavenging did not always emerge from professional criminality. War disrupted local economies. Crops were damaged. Homes and farms near battle suffered. A local person searching bodies might be desperate, opportunistic, accustomed to battlefield salvage, or all three. The dental market converted desperate acts into organized supply. Demand came from cities whose wealthy residents experienced the battle as news, victory, mourning, or political change. They did not see the field at night. The finished denture separated them from extraction. Distance protects comfort. The customer could imagine the teeth removed from unquestionably dead enemies, cleaned thoroughly, and offered through respectable trade. Reality included wounded men, mixed nationalities, theft, and bodily violation. The same distance operated within colonial sugar. Sugar contributed to dental decay. Its production relied heavily upon enslaved labor in the Caribbean and elsewhere. The wealthy European consumed sugar made through exploited bodies, lost teeth, and replaced them with teeth taken from other vulnerable bodies. One mouth sat at the meeting point of two violent economies. This does not mean every cavity came only from sugar or every denture owner consciously endorsed slavery and battlefield theft. It means material systems connected pleasures and harms the consumer did not need to see. Tea, sweetened with sugar, became a symbol of refinement. The dentures required to continue drinking and dining could contain human remains. The polished table concealed plantation and battlefield together. History restores those distances. It also prevents moral superiority from becoming too easy. Modern dental materials rely upon mining, manufacturing, energy, and global labor. Our devices are safer and not built from stolen teeth, but they still have supply chains deserving scrutiny. The lesson is not that all technology is equally cruel. It is that a finished object rarely tells the full story of its materials. Waterloo teeth tell more, because their origin is impossible to neutralize. The name keeps the battlefield attached. Imagine a dental supplier receiving a new parcel after the war. The package is modest. Inside, teeth have been wrapped or bagged. Some retain fragments requiring cleaning. Others are already scraped. The smell may reveal poor preparation. The supplier spreads them across a surface. Light is strong enough to compare enamel. Incisors form one group, canines another. Dark, cracked, and decayed examples are rejected or sold cheaply. Better teeth are graded. A particularly even group earns a higher price. No marker distinguishes French from British. The supplier may advertise quantity and freshness, invoking Waterloo even if shipments combine sources. The word creates confidence where documentation does not. A dentist purchases enough to maintain selection. The stock waits in drawers or containers. Drying changes color. Cleaning continues. A maker planning one denture may inspect dozens before finding a convincing row. Waste remains. Roots cut away. Teeth broken during drilling. Pieces that do not match. Human remains enter workshop rubbish with ivory filings and metal scraps. The object's construction required emotional distance from material. A craftsman could not pause over each biography and complete the work. Repetition turned teeth into components. Occupational language helped. Anterior, central, lateral, shade, size, set. Technical terms organize a body into tasks. Medicine still uses such language because precision matters. Ethical practice adds consent and respect rather than abandoning technical description. The early trade possessed technique without adequate consent. When the patient arrived, the dentist reversed the transformation. Components became smile. The row took on one identity, the wearer's. Portrait painters might depict the restored face. Social companions assumed the visible teeth belonged naturally or understood the artifice without knowing source. The dead soldiers became socially invisible. Could people recognize dentures? Close observers sometimes could. Color mismatch, unnatural uniformity, spring movement, speech, and facial tension revealed appliances. Satire mocked false teeth falling during conversation or dinner. Wearers feared embarrassment. Dentists advertised secrecy and natural appearance for that reason. Human teeth improved deception. They reflected light like enamel because they were enamel. Slight irregularity made them believable. The best compliment was not beautiful dentures. It was no one noticing dentures at all. This success demanded private routines. The wearer removed the set to clean after meals. Water, brush, cloth, powder, or solution cleared trapped food. Harsh abrasives scratched ivory and tooth. Hot water could warp or damage components. Instructions varied. At night, removing the appliance rested gums. The face changed immediately. Lips collapsed inward. Speech altered. The public identity rested beside the wash basin. A spouse, servant, or valet might handle it. Wealth transferred intimate maintenance to another person. A servant cleaned not only silver and clothing but human tooth machinery. This task required discretion. Household service protected the illusion of natural appearance. The dentures were ready before the wearer received visitors. A case traveled on journeys. Repair arrangements remained private. If a tooth loosened, the smile developed a gap. The maker riveted another. Replacement stock might come from a different battlefield, grave, donor, or porcelain manufacturer. One appliance changed material over time. The term Waterloo Teeth could survive even after every original tooth was replaced. Brand outlived substance. Dental advertising used the phrase much as modern products invoke tradition. Customers recognized the category. An exact claim was unnecessary. The Battle of Waterloo's prestige lasted through the century. Anniversaries, memoirs, relics, paintings, monuments, and veterans kept public interest alive. The teeth occupied the grotesque edge of that memory. They were relics without reverence. A sword from the field entered a collection. A uniform entered a museum. A tooth entered a stranger's mouth. All had been taken from war, but only one continued functioning as body. This makes the denture a form of intimate war trophy, even when the wearer never thought of it that way. The battlefield traveled into dining room, court, office, and theater. Each smile carried fragments of the defeated and victorious alike. There is dark irony in the idea that war helped elites eat. Young soldiers who may have lacked adequate food or dental care in life supplied chewing surfaces after death to people with abundant food. Their teeth were selected precisely because youth had preserved them. An ordinary soldier's body held one luxury marketable upward. The market valued only the part not yet destroyed by hardship. This is why human tooth dentures reveal class more clearly than many jewels. A jewel comes from earth. These came from another social body. The buyer's wealth did not merely display itself, it recruited anatomy. Porcelain eventually ended much of this particular transfer, because manufacturing could produce convincing teeth without waiting for death. Technology supplied an ethical improvement even when makers promoted it for durability and profit rather than morality. Standardization replaced scavenging. No battlefield could compete with a factory capable of producing consistent shades and shapes on demand. The dead lost commercial value as smiles. That is progress. It did not arrive through sudden compassion alone. Porcelain became better. Gold and later vulcanite bases improved. Supply became predictable. Professional reputation shifted toward clean manufactured materials. Customers wanted appliances that did not decay. Economics finally aligned with dignity. When that alignment occurs, a disturbing custom can disappear quickly. The drawer of human teeth empties. The supplier stops ordering. The scavenger loses one buyer. The battlefield remains terrible, but no longer feeds the same dental market. The final human tooth dentures continue in use until they wear out, break, are replaced, or follow owners into graves and collections. Some survive to remind us. Their survival also reveals how ideas about the smile changed. Modern photography and advertising encourage broad, tooth-revealing smiles. Earlier formal portraits often show closed lips regardless of dental health. The expression signaled composure and avoided the difficulty of painting teeth convincingly. A person with missing teeth could conceal them in a portrait more easily than in conversation. Daily life still exposed the mouth. Speech, laughter, eating, yawning, illness, and age brought teeth into view. Courtly self-control reduced display, but did not remove practical need. Dentures offered facial support, even with lips closed. Without teeth, the distance between nose and chin changes. Cheeks hollow. Jaw relation collapses. An ivory base and artificial row restore shape beneath skin. The wearer could appear younger. This rejuvenation increased value beyond chewing. Age threatened authority in public life. A statesman struggling to speak through tooth loss might seem weak. A wealthy widow navigating society faced judgment of appearance. A merchant's confidence mattered in negotiation. Artificial teeth became tools of identity. The source remained hidden behind the restored face. Public discomfort focused more upon whether dentures looked false than whether teeth came from a corpse. Familiar ethical categories differed. Anatomy schools openly used bodies from marginalized people. Executions supplied cadavers. Human remains entered collections without consent. The dead poor possessed fewer protections than the dead wealthy. Waterloo briefly leveled one aspect of death. Uniformed soldiers from many backgrounds lay together. Scavengers valued good teeth, not title, yet an officer's body might receive faster attention or guarded burial. While an ordinary soldier remained exposed, class returned even on the field. The wealthy could sometimes arrange family vaults, lead coffins, and secure graves that resisted body snatchers. The poor entered simple coffins and crowded churchyards. Tooth suppliers drew disproportionately from those least protected. The rich purchased from vulnerability while shielding their own dead. This asymmetry helps explain modern unease more than the material alone. Using a donated human tooth with informed consent would still seem unusual, but ethically different from pulling one from a battlefield corpse. Source matters. Contemporary medicine uses donated blood, organs, bone, corneas, skin, and tissue to save or improve lives. Human material can move between bodies through systems built around consent, allocation, screening, and respect. The Waterloo trade lacked those protections. Its problem was not simply that one person's tooth helped another. It was that violence and poverty supplied the material without consent, while profit erased identity. This distinction prevents disgust from becoming thoughtless. Human transplantation itself is not inherently wrong. Exploitation is. Early tooth transplantation makes the point sharply. In the 18th century, practitioners sometimes extracted a tooth from a living donor and inserted it immediately into a wealthy patient's empty socket. The donor might be young and poor. The recipient hoped the tooth would stabilize and remain. Some transplanted teeth did attach temporarily. Many failed. The procedure exposed both people to pain and infection. Reports that disease could pass with the tooth contributed to decline. Again, wealth attempted to purchase youth from another mouth. Dentures avoided direct transplantation into tissue, but preserved the social pattern. Porcelain finally allowed the appearance of youth to be manufactured rather than extracted. This is one reason artificial materials can be more humane than natural ones. Natural does not automatically mean ethical or safe. A real human tooth looks perfect because someone had to lose it. Porcelain admits artifice. It can be designed, repeated, and replaced without bodily theft. Manufacturers learned to make it look less artificial through shading and form. Slight color variation imitated enamel. Different molds represented incisors and canines. Dentists arranged teeth according to face and age. The factory learned what the scavenger's sorting table once supplied. Vulcanite bases made fit more accessible, though patent enforcement in dentistry became notorious. Dentists who used vulcanite without license faced fees or lawsuits. In the United States, conflict around dental vulcanite patents became intense and even violent. Progress carries its own markets. The end of corpse teeth did not end commercial struggle, nor did it immediately end dental suffering. Extraction remained common. Preventive dentistry developed slowly. Sugar consumption continued. Toothbrush manufacture expanded, but access and habit varied. Fluoride's protective role would not transform public health until much later. Dentures became normal enough to enter working-class life. In some communities, young adults later had teeth removed preemptively and received full dentures, a practice now recognized as destructive. The logic was economic. Remove future pain and dental bills at once. Technology that solved one problem encouraged unnecessary extraction. The history of dentistry is not a straight line from horror to comfort. Every improvement changes incentives. Anesthesia made extraction less terrifying and potentially more frequent. Cheap dentures restored appearance, but could make saving natural teeth seem less urgent. Professionalization improved standards but protected costly access. Modern dentistry continues balancing treatment, prevention, business, and inequality. Waterloo teeth occupy an early stage when replacement depended upon material scarcity. Their horror captures attention, but the enduring question is access. Why did some people lose teeth? Who received care? Whose body supplied the remedy? Who profited? Those questions lead beyond one battle: sugar plantations, urban poverty, military recruitment, medical markets, craft labor, class performance. The denture sits where all meet. This is why a small museum object can hold more history than a large monument. A Waterloo memorial celebrates generals, regiments, nations, and victory. A denture reveals what happened after the speeches. Bodies remained. Markets arrived. War continued through material reuse. The teeth were not the only things taken. Clothing, boots, weapons, personal letters, jewelry, and hair disappeared. Some became family relics or trophies. Others became ordinary goods, detached from origin. Teeth are uniquely unsettling because they resemble a face, even outside the mouth. Front teeth suggest expression. A row implies a smile. We recognize them as individual while being unable to identify the person. The denture rearranges expression. A smile made from several dead men belongs to none of them. It belongs to the buyer, who can control it. When the buyer dies, the row becomes ownerless again. Perhaps heirs discard it. Perhaps an undertaker removes valuable gold. Perhaps another wearer buys it. Perhaps it remains in a case until a collector acquires it. Medical museums grew from collections assembled by practitioners, institutions, and figures such as Henry Wellcome. Objects that once served patients became evidence of technical evolution. The collecting process also had ethical blind spots. Human remains entered catalogues as specimens. Modern museums reassess language, storage, display, and possible repatriation or restricted access. A Waterloo denture poses a difficult question because individual teeth cannot be returned to unidentified people. Respect begins with accurate description. Human teeth, unknown origin. Likely 19th century source. Possible battlefield association. Animal ivory base. Luxury appliance. No sensational certainty. The label can restore humanity without inventing biography. Visitors may still feel horror. Horror is an appropriate first response to violation. It should become inquiry. Who considered this normal? What alternatives existed? Why did demand persist? What replaced it? The answers reveal a society rather than a curiosity. Rich people wore teeth taken from dead soldiers because real enamel looked natural. Healthy human teeth were scarce. Battlefields provided sudden supply, and wealth allowed buyers to turn that supply into custom dentures. They did so within a culture that commercialized unprotected bodies and treated battlefield scavenging as a source of goods. The practice declined when porcelain, improved metalwork, vulcanite, professional dentistry, and changing ethics offered better alternatives. That is the direct answer. The rest of the story lives inside the fitting. Return to the wealthy gentleman at dinner. He has practiced wearing the dentures for several weeks. At first, every word felt crowded. The tongue repeatedly found the edge of the ivory base. Springs pushed while his jaw tried to relax. Now he manages better. Before guests arrived, a servant brought the cleaned appliance in its case. The gentleman inspected the front row, moistened the base, and placed upper and lower pieces carefully. He closed his mouth against the springs until they settled. A mirror confirmed the result. The lips looked supported. The lower face no longer collapsed. He spoke several phrases alone before entering the drawing room. At dinner, he chooses food strategically. Soft fish, bread broken small, vegetables cooked well, meat cut thin. He avoids biting directly with the artificial front teeth because leverage may loosen them. Chewing occurs slowly on whichever surface feels most stable. Guests interpret the pace as refinement. Only the wearer knows it is engineering. A crumb moves beneath the lower plate. Pain sharpens suddenly. He cannot remove the denture at table. He drinks, changes jaw pressure, and continues conversation while the gum beneath becomes irritated. Luxury demands performance. The human teeth fulfill their visible role perfectly. Candlelight softens color differences. When he smiles briefly, they appear alive. No one asks their names. Discussion turns toward Waterloo. Veterans, medals, politics, Napoleon, Wellington, and the future of Europe enter conversation. The gentleman hears the battlefield name while wearing its material aftermath. Does he think of the connection? Perhaps he tells guests proudly that his dentist secured a fine set of Waterloo teeth. Perhaps he avoids mention. Perhaps the label has become so ordinary that it suggests quality without image. People can become accustomed to astonishing origins when trade repeats them. Tea no longer evokes plantation. Ivory no longer evokes animal. Teeth no longer evoke soldier. The finished dining room is built from such absences. After guests leave, the appliance becomes difficult again. The gentleman returns to his room and opens his mouth carefully. Springs resist. Fingers release the plates. The gums underneath are red. One area has begun to ulcerate. Without dentures, relief is immediate. Warm water rinses the mouth. The set is cleaned with a small brush or cloth. Food trapped near pins comes away. The human teeth need attention like living teeth. Though no pain can reach them, the appliance rests in a shallow vessel. Its social power disappears. The gentleman's face in the mirror belongs to age and loss again. This private contrast helps explain why wearers tolerated the device. Public identity could be assembled each morning and removed at night. The denture acted almost like clothing for the face. Clothing also came from bodies and empire. Wool, silk, cotton, leather, feathers, ivory, hair, and bone surrounded elite life. Human teeth were unusual by degree, not by the general habit of turning natural material into status. The 19th century did not draw the modern line between animal and human materials at exactly the same place. Hair jewelry made from a loved one's hair expressed mourning and intimacy. Locks were exchanged. Teeth could be preserved as relics or keepsakes. Consent and relationship changed meaning. A mother keeping a child's tooth is different from a merchant buying one from a corpse. The material alone does not determine ethics. Context does. Waterloo context was extraction without identity. The gentleman may have seen the teeth simply as purchased goods because the market removed context. The dentist presented a finished row, not the hands that pulled it. This is why following the supply chain matters. It restores context, the sale erased. The row began not in a dental laboratory, but in a mouth on a battlefield. Perhaps the first owner was a French infantryman in his 20s. Perhaps a German soldier. Perhaps a British guardsman. We cannot know, and we should not invent one as fact. We can imagine the general conditions without assigning a false biography. Young men enlisted or were conscripted. They marched long distances. They ate hard bread, meat when available, and irregular rations. They used teeth as tools, as people often do, biting cartridge paper and managing equipment. Their dental health varied. The front teeth selected after death were valuable because they had survived military life. The soldier did not preserve them for a gentleman. He preserved them by being young. Death converted health into inventory. This inversion appears across anatomical trade. The healthiest parts of marginalized bodies become valuable to those with money. Organ markets in the modern world raise similar fears and require strong consent systems. Waterloo had no such system. Battlefield dead were not donors, they were looted. Calling the teeth donated would be false. Calling every wearer personally malicious would also be too simple. They participated in an accepted market whose injustice distance concealed. Historical judgment can identify harm without pretending individuals possessed all modern ethical frameworks. People then could feel violation too. Grave robbery provoked outrage. Battlefield stripping was condemned even when common. Alternatives existed, though imperfect. The market did not operate beyond morality. It operated where enforcement and empathy were weak. The dead soldier had no advocate at the dental counter. Family did not know. Army records did not follow teeth. The buyer's need spoke louder. Porcelain eventually offered the dead an advocate through substitution. Once a convincing tooth could be manufactured, the argument for human supply weakened. Continued use became less necessary and less respectable. Technology altered morality by altering possibility. This does not mean ethics wait for invention. People could have rejected corpse teeth earlier. It means alternatives make ethical choice easier to spread. A wealthy patient choosing porcelain may have cared about cleanliness, durability, appearance, or conscience. The result was the same: one less demand for human teeth. Manufacturers could advertise mineral teeth as incorruptible. They did not decay. They did not absorb odor in the same way. They did not carry disease. And their origin was comfortably non-human. The word incorruptible carried both physical and moral suggestion. Porcelain might chip, click, or look bright, but it did not remind anyone of a battlefield. Claudius, Ashe, and other makers refined shape and color until customers no longer had to choose realism through remains. The dental workshop changed its drawers. Rows of manufactured teeth arrived, organized by mold and shade. A broken tooth could be reordered. Supply no longer depended upon war, execution, grave, or poverty. Standardization made provenance clear. The maker knew which factory produced the tooth. The patient knew it had never belonged to another mouth. This certainty became part of cleanliness. By the time vulcanite bases spread, dentures moved toward recognizable modern form. Artificial teeth mounted in a molded material shaped to gums. Later, acrylic resins, improved alloys, precision impressions, and scientific bite registration continued the development. Implants would eventually offer another approach by anchoring artificial teeth to bone. Modern prosthodontics prioritizes function, tissue health, appearance, and biocompatibility through materials tested for the mouth. No human battlefield teeth are needed. Looking backward makes this seem obvious. At the time, natural enamel was the best visual material available. The path from obvious realism to ethical artificiality required makers to outperform nature. They succeeded. Artificial became better precisely because it was designed for the new body rather than stolen from the old one. The denture could be made for fit from the beginning. The tooth could be shaped for attachment. Color could be selected. Replacement could be planned. The material had no previous route to cut away. This is one of the quiet achievements of medical manufacturing. It makes care less dependent upon another person's loss. Return again to the dinner table several decades later. A different gentleman smiles. His teeth are porcelain mounted upon a carefully made base. They may still be uncomfortable by modern standards. They may still click. But no battlefield lies behind the enamel. Waterloo is now only conversation. The smile no longer contains it. The older denture remains in a drawer, inherited, discarded, or collected. Its human teeth darken slowly. The market has moved on. The drawer may open again a century later. A curator lifts the object with gloved hands and places it beneath good light. Records give an approximate date, but no patient. Construction reveals. Period. Ivory plate, human anterior teeth, metal attachment, perhaps spring fittings. The term Waterloo appears in older catalogue language. The curator asks what it means. Is there a letter connecting the set to 1815? Did a dentist advertise its source? Was it acquired with a story repeated by a collector? Or does the object simply resemble dentures commonly called Waterloo teeth? Provenance research separates label from evidence. The work can reduce certainty rather than increase it. A museum may change description from teeth taken at Waterloo to human teeth possibly sourced from battlefields and known commercially as Waterloo teeth. That cautious wording is stronger. It teaches both fact and limit. Visitors still understand the trade without being told an unprovable story about one set. The denture may be photographed from several angles. The front view shows smile. The back reveals pins and ivory. Scale marks show size. A digital record allows people worldwide to examine it without handling human remains. Technology creates ethical distance again. The object remains protected. Its history travels. The front row may appear surprisingly normal on a screen. This normality is essential. Corpse teeth were chosen because they did not look grotesque. They looked healthy. The danger of judging an object by appearance repeats from arsenic wallpaper. Green paper looked natural. Human teeth looked alive. Material origin remained hidden in success. The museum label returns origin. It may also explain the base. Hippopotamus ivory sounds almost as strange as the human teeth. The dense tusks and teeth of the animal supplied material large enough for carving. Trade in ivory connected dentistry to hunting, empire, and ecological exploitation. A single denture, therefore, combined two bodies taken without consent: animal base and human crowns. Gold or metal pins added mining. Sugar-related decay added plantation economy. The object is global. African animal material, European or other human teeth, metals from unknown mines, craft in London or another city, use in an elite household. No part is local, simply because the appliance fits one mouth. This material map explains why dentures cost so much. Ivory had to be obtained and selected. Human teeth had to be sourced and graded. Goldsmith-level work required skill. Clinical fitting required reputation. Adjustments consumed time. The price represented more than the raw teeth. It bought access to an international chain. The poor donor at one end and wealthy wearer at the other may never have known the middle. Trade relied upon that separation. Modern dental patients rarely know the full origin of ceramics, metals, polymers, or instruments either. Regulation and professional ethics provide trust. Materials are tested, traced, and manufactured under standards. The difference is not complete consumer knowledge. It is accountable systems. Waterloo Teeth existed where accountability ended at the sale. If the tooth looked sound, origin could remain unexamined. No law required consent from the dead. No infection control standard verified processing. No professional regulator barred a practitioner from advertising battlefield material. Reputation rewarded result. Changing dentistry required institutions as well as materials. Dental schools established curricula. Licensing laws defined practice. Professional associations set standards. Journals circulated research. Manufacturers supplied consistent components. Anesthesia, antisepsis, radiography, restorative techniques, and preventive care transformed experience. Each development reduced reliance upon extraction and improvised replacement. The best way to eliminate demand for corpse teeth was to help people keep living teeth. Prevention entered slowly. Understanding decay, improving brushes and pastes, treating cavities, managing gums, applying fluoride, and encouraging regular care preserved mouths before full dentures became necessary. This shifts focus from replacement to health. An elegant prosthesis remains valuable when teeth are lost, but it is no longer the first response to pain. Early 19th century dentistry often reached the patient at crisis. Pain, extraction, gap, denture. Modern care aims to intervene earlier. This change is less visually dramatic than Waterloo Teeth, but far more important. A natural tooth saved requires no battlefield, ivory, porcelain, or spring. The absence of extraction is another quiet public health success. Inequality remains. People without access still lose teeth from preventable disease. Cost, geography, fear, disability, diet, and systemic health shape outcomes. Wealth still buys more comfortable and aesthetic options. The old class pattern has not disappeared entirely, but no legal market allows the rich to purchase stolen teeth from the dead as a normal solution. Ethical boundaries moved. Human remains receive stronger protection. War dead receive organized recovery and commemoration. Medical donation uses consent. Dental materials are manufactured for purpose. These boundaries can fail, especially during conflict and exploitation. Their existence still matters. The Waterloo denture lets us measure change. Place it beside a modern implant-supported prosthesis. One uses carved ivory, springs, and anonymous human teeth. The other uses engineered ceramics, polymers, and biocompatible metals shaped through scans and precision manufacture. One depends upon scavenging and hand comparison. The other depends upon imaging, laboratory design, sterile surgery, and regulated supply. Both respond to the same human desire. Eat, speak, smile, feel whole. The desire is not vain. Tooth loss affects nutrition, employment, communication, self-image, and social connection. The wealthy gentleman's wish for restoration was understandable. The method is what history questions. Need does not justify every supply. Modern medicine confronts this principle whenever scarcity meets desperation. Organ transplantation, fertility services, blood products, research tissue, and genetic data all require systems preventing exploitation. Waterloo Teeth offer a small, early warning. When one body needs what another body contains, Inequality can turn transfer into theft. Consent is the line that must not disappear. The dead soldiers could not consent. Their families did not consent. The battlefield prevented identification. The market treated silence as availability. That is the moral core. The customer's wealth completed the transfer. This is why the title asks why rich people wore the teeth, not merely how dentures were made. The social difference created demand at one end and vulnerability at the other. If every person had equal access to preservation and prosthetic materials, healthy teeth would not need to move upward through class. Technology eventually supplied another route. Ethics later named the problem more clearly. Museums now preserve the evidence. The object can remain without the practice. That may be the best use for it. Not in a mouth, not in an advertisement, in a protected case where it can make hidden systems visible. The Rao no longer performs youth for one wearer. It performs memory for many viewers. Its slight irregularities invite us to see individuals without pretending to know them. One central incisor may be broader, one canine darker, one edge worn. Each difference says that manufacture did not create these crowns. Life did. Food, age, habit, and use shaped them before death. The dentist cut away roots, but could not erase all history from enamel. Microscopic wear might reveal diet or behavior, though destructive analysis would raise its own ethical questions. The object holds information no one should consume casually. Respect can include leaving some questions unanswered. We do not need to identify a particular battle victim to understand violation. Anonymous does not mean ownerless. It means the name has been lost. The person has not become a thing. The museum case can hold that distinction quietly. Let us leave the museum before closing time. The gallery is calm. Dental instruments, chairs, models, brushes, advertisements, and appliances occupy separate cases. Together, they trace the long attempt to control one of the body's most persistent forms of pain. The Waterloo denture rests among them. Light is low enough to protect sensitive material. Glass separates visitor from object. A label provides date and construction. No smell, pressure, or movement remains. The denture looks peaceful because it no longer has to work. It does not press against gums. It does not resist a jaw. It does not collect food. It does not create a smile. Its springs, if present, hold no force. Function has become form. The gallery closes. Footsteps fade. Cases reflect one another across the darkened room. A modern toothbrush stands near older tooth powders. A dental key no longer turns. Porcelain teeth remain arranged exactly as the manufacturer intended. The human teeth are no longer treated as stock. They are treated as remains. That change in category is one measure of ethical distance from the original workshop. The dentist saw material. The museum sees material and personhood together. Neither can identify the first owners, but the second can refuse to erase them. Our story can do the same. We can call the trade what it was: battlefield looting, corpse commerce, class transfer, medical craft, luxury technology, all at once. Reducing it to one label hides something. Calling it only barbaric hides technical skill and patient need. Calling it only innovative hides violation. Calling it only patriotic hides mixed bodies. calling it only dentistry hides war. The complete object resists comfort. That resistance makes it valuable. Now, imagine moving backward through its construction, gently and without reenacting harm. The metal pins release in reverse. One human tooth separates from the ivory base, then another. The row no longer forms a stranger's smile. Each crown rests alone. Roots cannot return. They were cut away long ago. Names cannot return. The market never preserved them. But separation allows us to stop pretending the teeth belonged naturally together. The ivory base becomes an empty curve. Springs relax. The patient's jaw shape remains carved into material, but the battlefield leaves the appliance. The teeth travel backward from museum to collector, from collector to owner's household, from household to dental surgery, from surgery to workshop. On the workbench, they join a larger selection. The maker has not yet drilled them. The supplier has not yet graded them. The parcel closes. It travels backward across road and water toward Belgium. This imagined reversal cannot restore the dead, but it can restore direction. The teeth did not begin as English luxury goods. They began inside people. The journey toward wealth was imposed. Now the parcel reaches the field and disappears from our story before anyone opens it. No scavenger approaches. No pliers appear. The dead remain beyond our view and receive the distance they were denied. We do not need to stand among them. The battle has already ended. Rain has stopped. Smoke moves away from the ridge. Night covers uniforms, nationality, rank, and injury together. Burial parties will come. In a better version of history, every body would be identified, protected, and returned or buried with care. That did not happen for many at Waterloo. We can still imagine the dignity they should have received. No tooth market enters. The soldiers remain whole. The gentleman in London must choose another material. Perhaps an imperfect porcelain denture. Perhaps carved ivory. Perhaps waiting for better technology. His need remains real. It simply cannot be answered through unconsented remains. Ethical history sometimes asks us to imagine not a perfect world, but a boundary. This far, no farther. Pain does not justify theft. Wealth does not create ownership of another body. Death does not erase personhood. The boundary would have made early dentures more difficult. It would also have encouraged alternatives sooner. Necessity drives invention most strongly when exploitation is not available as shortcut. Porcelain might have received greater investment. Preventive care might have mattered more. Living donors would have needed real choice. The counterfactual cannot be proven, but the principle is sound. Cheap, vulnerable bodies delay humane technology. The Waterloo supply flooded the market and made natural teeth temporarily easier to obtain. Ease postponed the need to solve realism another way. When supply declined and manufactured teeth improved, innovation moved. The museum case therefore contains an obsolete shortcut. Real enamel offered realism without solving production. It solved one patient's appearance by transferring loss. Porcelain solved appearance through manufacture. The latter became the future. The rich gentleman's dinner can now end differently. He wears a mineral tooth appliance, perhaps not as perfectly natural at first. Guests may notice slight brightness. The denture may click. He may feel self-conscious. but no soldier's tooth crosses his lips. The imperfection is ethically lighter. Over time, makers improve it. Color softens, shape varies, fit advances. What begins slightly artificial becomes better than the stolen natural material in durability and cleanliness. This pattern appears repeatedly in technology. An ethical constraint seems to demand sacrifice. Innovation reduces the sacrifice. Eventually, the old harmful method looks both cruel and technically inferior. Human tooth dentures decayed, stained, smelled, and fit poorly. Their realism was temporary. Porcelain and later materials outlasted them. The dead soldiers did not leave dentistry only because people became kinder. They left because exploitation stopped being the best technology. We should remember both forces. Moral pressure directs. Technical improvement enables. Professional standards maintain. Public expectation normalizes. Together, they change practice. The first owner of a modern denture knows the teeth have no previous owner. This simple certainty is a luxury early patients could not assume. The artificial teeth are genuinely artificial. No hidden biography rests inside them. They belong to the patient from creation. That is cleaner in every sense. The phrase Waterloo Teeth then becomes history rather than product category. Collectors use it. Museums explain it. Popular stories repeat it, sometimes too broadly. Our task is to keep the phrase accurate. It referred to human teeth taken from battlefield dead, especially associated with the enormous supply after Waterloo, and more broadly, to dentures using such teeth during the 19th century. It does not guarantee that every labeled specimen came from that exact field. The dentures combined human teeth with bases such as hippopotamus or walrus ivory and metal attachments. They were costly and therefore associated with affluent wearers. The practice existed before 1815 and continued afterward. Porcelain teeth and new base materials gradually displaced it. Those facts are vivid enough. No need to claim every one of 50,000 casualties was dead or stripped of teeth. No need to pretend dentists hid the source. No need to call George Washington's dentures wooden. The corrected story is stranger than the myths. People openly purchased corpse teeth as premium material. That openness tells us more about the period than secrecy would. It means the market had normalized bodily origin. A customer could ask for Waterloo quality, as one might ask for fine ivory or gold. The ethical shock belongs partly to us, looking backward after consent. Infection control, human remains law, and manufactured prosthetics changed expectations. Yet contemporary grave protection measures remind us that people then also understood violation. Families feared body snatchers. Religious burial mattered. Battlefield looting was condemned. The trade occupied a moral blind spot created by distance and class, not an entirely alien absence of feeling. This makes the story more recognizable. Societies often protect people close enough to imagine and exploit people far enough to ignore. The anonymous soldier was far away. The gentleman's pain was immediate. The dentist served the person in the chair. The market served the dentist. No one in the room represented the dead. Modern ethical systems create representation for absent people through law, consent rules, professional codes, and documentation. They ask the question the market avoided. Where did this material come from? That question changes everything. Ask it of the tooth, and the battlefield appears. Ask it of the ivory, and the hunted animal appears. Ask it of the sugar, and the plantation appears. Ask it of the gold, and the mine appears. The elegant denture becomes a map of extraction. The wearer's smile sits at the end. Historical objects reward this backward questioning. They look complete because makers conceal assembly. Pull the materials apart conceptually, and the world enters. The same method has guided every script in this batch so far. A bed leads to law. A vat leads to urban economy. A birth chamber leads to revolution. A wallpaper leads to arsenic mining. A denture leads to Waterloo. Domestic history is never small. It touches systems large enough to shape nations. The tooth itself remains small enough to hold between two fingers. That contrast makes it powerful. One incisor can connect a dead conscript, a scavenger, a merchant, an ivory carver, a dentist, a wealthy patient, and a museum visitor across 2 centuries. No one designed that chain as a whole. Profit joined it. History names it. Now the tooth can rest without being used again. The museum lights are completely out. Temperature and humidity remain controlled. The case protects fragile ivory and human material. A catalog record preserves what is known and admits what is not. No patient waits. No spring pushes. No jaw closes. The row has stopped pretending to be one person's natural smile. It can remain a row of individuals whose names are lost, but whose humanity is not. That is enough for tonight. And yet, before we leave the story entirely, there is value in returning to the ordinary room in which such teeth were actually worn. Not the battlefield now, not the workshop, not the museum. Imagine instead a quiet dining room in London during the first half of the 19th century. Candles stand on the table. Their flames move whenever a servant opens the door. Porcelain dishes arrive beneath silver covers, and conversation passes carefully from one guest to another. At the table sits a person whose smile contains human teeth that once belonged to strangers. No one mentions this. The other guests may know that dentures exist. They may even suspect that the teeth are not original. But good manners depend upon allowing the repair to remain invisible. The wearer has spent money precisely so that the room will not pause and stare. This is the social purpose of the object. It does not merely grind food, it protects a face from public interpretation. In a society that often treated physical appearance as evidence of discipline and rank, an incomplete smile could invite assumptions about age, poverty, illness, or neglect. Those assumptions might be unfair, but they could still influence courtship, employment, business, and confidence. The denture offered a form of defense. Its wearer did not need to be vain in any simple sense. The person might merely wish to speak without covering the mouth, to dine without embarrassment, or to meet another person's eyes while smiling. That desire is easy to understand. The disturbing part lies not in wanting replacement teeth, but in the supply chain that answered the want. This distinction matters because history becomes shallow when it divides everyone into villains and victims too quickly. The patient in the chair may have suffered for years. The dentist may have believed that he was restoring comfort and dignity. The technician may have taken pride in difficult workmanship. The merchant may have treated teeth as ordinary stock because the market already did so, and the soldier, whose tooth completed the object, may never have imagined any of them. Each person occupied one small section of the chain. Responsibility was distributed until it became difficult to see. That is one reason strange historical practices can survive. They do not always require a room full of openly cruel people. They may require only a sequence of narrow decisions, each defended as practical. Someone needs teeth. Someone has teeth to sell. Someone can fit them. Someone can pay. The origin becomes a question no participant is rewarded for asking. At dinner, the wearer lifts a spoon carefully. The springs of the denture press the upper and lower pieces apart. The jaw must work against them. Speech requires practice. Certain sounds expose the unfamiliar shape inside the mouth. The object may click. Food may collect beneath the base. The ivory can absorb stains and odors over time. The gums may become tender where the fit is imperfect. Even an expensive denture is not a return to a natural mouth. It is a negotiation with discomfort. Historical portraits conceal this physical reality. Painted faces remain composed, lips close neatly. No spring is visible, no ulcer aches, and no meal becomes difficult. The portrait records status. The denture records effort. Between them lies the private labor of appearing whole. After dinner, the wearer may retire and remove the appliance. Without it, the face changes. The lips lose support. The jaw settles differently. A public identity gives way to a private body. The denture is cleaned as well as contemporary knowledge permits. Perhaps it is brushed. Perhaps it is rinsed. Perhaps it rests overnight in a container beside the bed. There, separated from the face, the illusion becomes unmistakable. Rows of teeth are fixed into carved material. Wires and rivets reveal the mechanism. What looked natural across a room now looks constructed. And if those teeth are human, the bedside object holds several biographies at once. The wearer knows only one of them, the biography of purchase. The dentist knows the biography of manufacture. The teeth carry biographies of growth, childhood, diet, illness, and use that no invoice records. Enamel formed inside other bodies many years earlier. Each tooth emerged through another person's gum. Each met food chosen by another household. Each occupied a place in another smile. The trade removed all of that context and reduced the tooth to shape, color, and price. A sound incisor became valuable because it could disappear into someone else's appearance. This is an unusual kind of erasure. The material succeeds only when its former owner is forgotten. We can now understand why the phrase Waterloo Teeth worked so well in the marketplace. It gave anonymous material a memorable origin while still erasing individual identity. The buyer received a dramatic story without being asked to mourn a particular person. Waterloo suggested youth, strength, and recent extraction. It also suggested distance. The battlefield was famous enough to advertise quality and remote enough to keep the dead abstract. The name transformed violence into branding. This does not mean every dentist announced the source with pride, or every patient specifically requested teeth from Waterloo. Evidence varies, and the label eventually became broader than the battlefield itself. But the phrase survived because it compressed a whole trade into two marketable words. It promised that the teeth were real. It implied that they were fresh. And it avoided the uncomfortable sentence beneath the promise. These may have been removed from young people who died in war. Language often performs this softening work. We say material instead of body. We say supply instead of removal. We say specimen instead of person. Such words can be useful, especially in medicine and museums, but they can also create distance. The most honest history moves between both levels. This is a denture. These are also human remains. It is an example of dental technology. It is also evidence of unequal power. It relieved suffering. Its materials could embody other suffering. All of these statements can be true at once. Complexity does not weaken the story. It makes the story accurate. Let the candle burn lower beside the bed. Outside, carriage wheels pass over wet stones. The city has not yet developed the clean, bright dental clinics familiar today. Toothache remains common. Extraction remains frightening. Prevention is limited, and replacement is a luxury. Somewhere nearby, a person sleeps with no replacement teeth at all. Another wears an appliance made from ivory and porcelain. Another wears human teeth. Another is saving money for an extraction that can no longer be delayed. The history of dentistry is not a single march from ignorance to knowledge. It is a landscape in which pain, ingenuity, commerce, fashion, and access change at different speeds. Technical progress may arrive before ethical agreement. An effective method may remain too expensive for most people. A more humane material may still fit badly. A skilled dentist may operate within a society that accepts sources we now reject. This unevenness is normal in history. It is also why the old denture should not be treated merely as a grotesque curiosity. If we stare only because it seems disgusting, we miss what it can teach. The object asks who received medical comfort, who supplied the raw material, and whose consent mattered. Those questions are not confined to the 19th century. Modern medicine depends upon donated blood, organs, tissue, embryos, genetic information, and bodies given for study. The systems surrounding them attempt to establish consent, safety, traceability, and respect. Those protections exist because societies learned, often slowly and painfully, that the usefulness of human material does not cancel the humanity of its source. The old tooth trade shows what happens when usefulness dominates every other question. Its history, therefore, belongs not only to dentistry but also to the history of consent. Consent is easy to overlook when the person who could refuse is absent. The battlefield dead could not negotiate. Executed prisoners had little power even before death. Poor people who sold healthy teeth while alive could agree in a narrow legal sense, while economic desperation shaped the choice. Grave robbing ignored both the dead and their families. Different sources, therefore, carried different ethical problems, but all were gathered into the same market. Once sorted by size and color, the distinctions disappeared. The tooth did not arrive with its story attached. That anonymity benefited the buyer. It also benefited the seller. No one needed to explain too much. Now imagine the dentist opening a drawer, Inside are teeth arranged in rows. Some are too yellow, some are too small, some are worn at the edge, some have roots that must be altered before mounting. The dentist or technician selects a group that will look convincing together. This is partly medicine and partly portraiture. The color must suit the patient's age and complexion. Perfectly white teeth might appear unnatural. Slight variations can make the row more believable. The shape of the face matters. The line of the lips matters. The patient's existing teeth, if any remain, matter. The maker is constructing not simply a tool, but an identity. Human teeth possess a natural irregularity that artificial manufacturers struggle to imitate. That was one reason they remained desirable even as porcelain alternatives developed. Porcelain could be durable and free from decay, but early examples might look too uniform, too opaque, or too conspicuously artificial. They could chip. Their fit and mounting presented challenges. Innovation did not erase the older trade overnight. Markets rarely change in a single clean moment. Old and new materials coexist. Dentists adopt them at different speeds. Patients make decisions according to price, reputation, availability, and fear. A familiar, imperfect option can remain popular beside a promising invention. Gradually, however, artificial teeth improved. Manufacturing became more consistent. Dental practice became more professional. New base materials reduced cost. The appeal of human teeth weakened as alternatives became practical. This transition offers a quiet lesson. Ethical improvement often becomes easier when technology provides a workable substitute. Moral argument matters, but so do materials. If porcelain teeth are convincing, durable, and affordable, the market no longer needs to defend the harvesting of human teeth. If vulcanite bases can be produced at lower cost, replacement becomes available beyond a small, wealthy class. The story changes because invention changes what society considers necessary. Still, we should resist giving technology all the credit. People also changed the way they thought about bodies, burial, professional responsibility, and the dignity of the dead. Laws developed. Institutions developed. Documentation improved. Dentistry separated itself more clearly from itinerant tooth drawers, craftsmen, and unregulated sellers. The path was neither quick nor perfect, but the direction became recognizable. The bedside denture belongs to a moment before that transformation was complete. It is both sophisticated and crude. Its maker understood anatomy, carving, balance, and appearance. Its materials reveal a world with weak safeguards. That combination can feel unsettling because we often expect advanced craftsmanship to arrive with advanced ethics. History offers no such guarantee. A society may be ingenious in one area and careless in another. Indeed, the same object can display both qualities. The denture is beautifully constructed. The supply chain may be horrifying. The patient's relief may be genuine. The dead person's silence may have been exploited. Holding these truths together is more useful than choosing only one. The room is nearly dark now. The appliance rests in its dish. Without the pressure of the springs, it is completely still. If we could examine it closely, we might see wear created by years of use. Tiny scratches mark cleaning. Stains have entered the ivory. Metal components have changed. The teeth show contact with food and opposing surfaces. These marks belong to the second life of the teeth. Their first life is mostly unreadable. That imbalance is another consequence of ownership. The wealthy wearer left records, bills, portraits, household papers, perhaps letters mentioning dental discomfort. The original owners may have left nothing that can be connected to the object. History often preserves the person who paid more clearly than the person who supplied. Museums can partly correct this by describing the human material plainly rather than treating it as decorative detail. They can acknowledge uncertainty. They can avoid turning anonymous remains into a joke. They can explain the market without pretending to know a biography that evidence cannot recover. Respect begins with accurate limits. We do not know whose teeth these were. We may not know whether a particular set truly came from Waterloo. We may know only that such teeth circulated within a trade that drew from battlefields, graves, prisons, and living cellars. That is enough to establish the system, though not enough to name every person within it. The historian must be comfortable with that difference. Certainty is not created by telling the story more dramatically. It is created by stating clearly what evidence can bear. So, let us gather the reliable pieces one more time. By the late 18th and early 19th centuries, missing teeth could be replaced with dentures made from costly materials, including ivory, metal, porcelain, and human teeth. Human teeth were valued because they looked natural. They could be purchased from living sellers, removed from corpses, taken from executed people, supplied through grave robbery, or gathered after battles. Waterloo became the most famous name associated with battlefield teeth after the enormous violence of 1815. The phrase Waterloo Teeth then acquired commercial power and could be used more broadly. Dentists and technicians selected, altered, and mounted teeth into bases, sometimes with metal rivets and springs. The resulting appliances could restore appearance and some function, though they were often uncomfortable, difficult to clean, and far from modern dentures. Artificial alternatives improved during the 19th century. Porcelain and new base materials gradually reduced reliance on human teeth. Professional and ethical standards also changed. The practice faded, leaving behind objects that now reveal the hidden relationship between war, class, commerce, and the body. That is the whole answer. Stated without mystery. Why did rich people wear teeth taken from dead soldiers? Because natural-looking replacement teeth were scarce and valuable. Because war created a sudden supply of young human bodies. Because traders could convert that supply into profit. Because wealthy patients could afford elaborate dentures. Because artificial substitutes had not yet become equally convincing, accessible, and accepted, and because the people whose teeth were taken had too little power to stop the transaction. The answer is practical. The implications are not. We began with a shocking image of a wealthy smile containing the teeth of a dead soldier. After spending time with the object, the shock has become quieter and more precise. It is no longer simply the shock of something strange. It is the recognition of a system. The battlefield supplied the city. The poor supplied the rich. The anonymous body supplied the named face. Craftsmanship made the transfer invisible. Language made it respectable. Distance made it bearable. That pattern extends beyond teeth. but the tooth gives it a form we cannot easily ignore. It is intimate. It sits inside the mouth. It appears whenever someone speaks or smiles. An object could hardly be more personal, yet the trade made it transferable. Perhaps that is why the story continues to fascinate people. It crosses a boundary we instinctively consider firm. Your teeth belong to you. The historical market replied that, under certain conditions, they could belong to whoever paid. Modern discomfort is therefore not childish disgust. It is an ethical reaction to the conversion of identity into inventory. At the same time, we can feel sympathy for the patient who wanted to eat and smile again. The story does not ask us to mock that desire. It asks us to notice whose body answered it. The candle has reached its final pool of wax. The last carriage has passed. The wearer sleeps, the denture beside the bed. Far away in Belgium, fields that once held armies have returned to darkness. Grass grows over ground that was torn by horses, boots, artillery, and rain. The wounded cries have been absent for generations. Monuments now organize memory. Maps trace the movement of regiments. Visitors stand where soldiers once waited. Most of the individuals are known only through lists, and many are barely known at all. The tooth trade forms a small, uncomfortable afterlife of that battle. It reminds us that violence did not end when firing stopped. Bodies continued to be searched. Uniforms, boots, weapons, coins, and teeth entered other economies. War dispersed its materials into civilian life. A drawing room smile could therefore contain a fragment of a battlefield, even when conversation never mentioned war. The domestic and military worlds were not separate. One consumed the remains of the other. Now the fields are quiet, and the dining room is gone. The workshop has closed. The dentist's drawer is empty. The museum case remains. Within it, the denture no longer needs to perform youth, wealth, or respectability. It no longer needs to fool anyone. Its artificial construction is the reason we preserve it. The object has changed roles. Once it concealed history. Now it reveals history. Once its success depended upon silence. Now it invites careful explanation. Once the teeth served a single wearer. Now they teach anyone willing to look. We can leave them there without imagining anything supernatural. The dead do not require a ghost story to deserve attention. The facts are enough. A person lived. A tooth formed. A war or market separated it from its owner. A craftsman gave it another use. Time turned it into evidence. And tonight, for a little while, attention restored the missing human question. Who did this belong to? There is no name to answer. So the most respectful response is not invention. It is remembrance without possession. Someone, not merely material. Someone. The word can remain softly in the dark. Outside the museum, the city is sleeping. Windows are black. Roads have emptied. Rain has stopped against the glass. Inside the gallery, cabinets stand in long rows, each containing objects that once touched ordinary bodies and ordinary days. Spectacles, surgical tools, brushes, prosthetic limbs, dentures, objects made to repair the fragile arrangements of human life. They are still now. Nothing clicks. Nothing presses against a gum. Nothing asks to be worn. The old denture rests on its support beneath low protective light. Its human teeth no longer belong to commerce. They cannot be sold again. They cannot be placed into another mouth. They remain together only because preserving the object preserves the warning. Pain can create demand. Skill can answer demand. Profit can hide origin. Distance can silence conscience. And a beautiful result can contain a difficult history. There is no need to hold these thoughts tightly as you rest. Let them settle one by one. The candle, the dining room, the workshop, the drawer, the battlefield, the museum case. Each scene grows dim. The springs relax. The jaw is still. The smile no longer needs to be maintained. Even the unanswered questions can rest for tonight. We have followed the teeth as far as evidence allows. We have seen why they were wanted, where they could come from, how they were fitted, who could afford them, and why the practice declined. Nothing more is required. The final light in the gallery switches off. The case disappears into the gentle dark. The city beyond it becomes quiet. And the long journey from a forgotten mouth to a famous battlefield, from a merchant's packet to a wealthy face, and from a bedside dish to a museum shelf, has finally come to an end. Rest comfortably. Let the strange smile fade. Let the room grow peaceful. Nothing in the cabinet is moving now. The ivory base is still. The metal fittings are still. The small human teeth, once carried through lives we cannot recover, are still. They have passed beyond pain, beyond purchase, and beyond the demands of appearance. No candlelit guest is watching. No dentist is measuring a jaw. No merchant is counting a payment. No scavenger is searching the wet ground after battle. Those scenes belong to history, and history can remain outside your room tonight. You have heard the answer and followed the evidence gently from one place to another. There is no need to remember every name, material, date, or detail. It is enough to understand that an ordinary smile could conceal an extraordinary chain of human lives. Now even that thought may become quiet. Imagine the gallery doors closing securely, the old object protected behind glass, and the darkness settling without fear. Morning will return to the museum in its own time. Visitors will come, labels will be read, and questions will begin again. But not yet, for now there is only rest. The battlefield grass bends beneath a soft night wind. The workshop fire has gone cold. The dining table has been cleared. Beside the empty bed, the little dish reflects the final line of moonlight and then disappears into shadow. Every part of the journey is finished. The story can sleep, and so can you. Good night.